The realm of life, Gairan, was once a radiant gem in the crown of creation, a place where life in all its forms flourished in a sacred, interwoven harmony. Verdant forests sprawled endlessly, teeming with creatures both magical and mundane. The skies were azure and unclouded. The winds carried the scent of blossoms in every season, and the rivers shone like silver ribbons under the sunlight. At the heart of this unspoiled world reigned Alarielle, the Ever-Queen, goddess of nature, growth, and renewal. She was more than a deity to her people. She was the soul of Gairan itself, her emotions and vitality directly reflected in the realm's natural rhythms. Her court, comprised of sentient treefolk known as the Sylvaneth, served her in devotion and protected the land as her living extensions. But such beauty and order could not go unnoticed by the forces of ruin. Welcome back, lore seekers and realm walkers. This is the second episode in our deep dive into the Realmgate Wars, a saga of gods, empires, and the eternal clash between creation and destruction. Today, we journey to the realm of life, Gairan. Once a radiant gem in the crown of creation, a place where life in all its forms flourished in sacred, interwoven harmony. As the Age of Chaos erupted across the mortal realms, Gairan found itself in the crosshairs of one whose desire to corrupt beauty knew no bounds. Grandfather Nurgle, the chaos god of decay, disease, and virulent growth. Nurgle saw Gairan not as a conquest, but as a masterpiece waiting to be perfected with rot and pestilence. His love for the realm was a grotesque mockery of admiration. He longed to see its thriving ecosystems mutated, its rivers turned to sludge, and its forests twisted into pustulant mangroves of rot. Alarielle's defiance only fueled his obsession, and soon the realm of life was subjected to an inexorable assault. Over centuries, Nurgle's demonic legions, mortal cultists, and monstrous creations spread across Gairan like mold on fruit. The once proud Jade kingdoms fell one by one, succumbing to corruption. Great cities crumbled under clouds of spores, forests turned black with blight, and rivers reversed their flow, carrying disease instead of life. Entire populations were turned into shambling hosts of plague, their bodies bloated and leaking with pus, praising their new patron with every rasping breath. The Sylvaneth fought back bravely, but for every grove they defended, 10 more fell. Alarielle's light waned, her connection to the natural cycle twisted by despair. At times, she even withdrew into a dormant soul pod form, a seed of life meant to be reborn, but vulnerable to corruption if captured. Amid this grim collapse, Sigmar, the god king of Azir, watched with mounting urgency. Though once he had sealed the gates of Azir to protect his people, he now realized that Gairan's fall could not be allowed to continue. Life itself was at stake. Thus, he dispatched one of his most devout and valorous storm hosts, the Hallowed Knights. Known for their unyielding faith and refusal to compromise in the face of evil, they carried with them a creed, only the faithful, a mantra that had brought them through the fires of battle and death countless times. Leading this sacred mission was Lord Celestant Gardas Steel Soul, a warrior as renowned for his humility as for his martial prowess. Clad in gleaming Sigmarite armor, his soul reforged in the lightning of Azir, Gardas was the perfect envoy to approach a grieving goddess. He and his warriors descended into Gairan like falling stars, bringing light to lands shrouded in corruption. Their arrival was marked by battle. At the gates of dawn, a once sacred realm gate that had become a conduit for Nurgle's magic. The Hallowed Knights confronted Bolithrax, a towering great unclean one, attempting to merge Gairan with Nurgle's garden. In an act of self-sacrifice, Gardas flung himself and Bolithrax through the gate, breaking the ritual but vanishing into the realm of chaos. Gardas's journey through the Garden of Nurgle would become legend. He wandered through an alien dimension where time oozed like tar, and reality decayed into surrealism. Insects the size of horses swarmed him, and fungal behemoths lumbered through fields of sentient slime. The air was filled with laughter, joyous, gurgling, infectious laughter from Nurgle's children, who saw themselves as gardeners of a better world. Gardas resisted the temptations of comfort, the offers of peace in rot, and the overwhelming despair. Clinging to his faith and a still voice that may have been Sigmar or Alarielle herself, he found a weakness in the Veil and tore his way back into Ghyran, stumbling through a Realmgate and collapsing into the arms of astonished Sylvaneth. While Gardas endured that hellish sojourn, his storm host continued the mission. Under the leadership of Lord Castellant Loris Grimm, the Hallowed Knights forged alliances with scattered Sylvaneth enclaves. After navigating cursed forests and enduring ambushes by plague beasts, they discovered Alarielle's last sanctuary, the Hidden Veil. There, the goddess lay in spiritual mourning, barely conscious of the world's cries. Grimm and his warriors pleaded for her to awaken, to fight again, but their very presence gave away her location. Nurgle's forces struck swiftly. The Blight Kings, Rotbringers, and greater demons descended upon the Veil. A furious battle erupted. Sylvaneth Dryads, Tree Lords, and Stormcast Liberators fought in unison, holding the line as the ground itself writhed with corruption. Then, in a moment of divine providence, Gardas returned to the battlefield. His reappearance was like the rising of the sun, galvanizing the defenders. He plunged back into battle, cutting down plague bearers with renewed fury. But victory was not theirs. Bolithrax re-emerged from a festering gate and slew Gardas in a horrific display, consuming his form in a tide of filth. Alarielle, racked with grief and rage, enacted a final defense. She withdrew once more into her soul pod form, now glowing with fragile hope. Thus began a harrowing retreat. The soul pod was borne by the Lady of Vines, and defended by dwindling numbers of Stormcasts and Sylvaneth. Their journey was a gauntlet of horror. Torglug the Despised, Nurgle's favored warlord, hunted them relentlessly. Fields of choking pollen, forests animated by disease, and rivers that turned limbs to mush barred their path. Madness crept into the minds of the weak, yet they pressed on, driven by duty and belief. Khorne, ever eager to spite Nurgle, sent his greatest outcast, Skarbrand, the exiled bloodthirster. He fell upon Ghyran like a living meteor, carving through Nurgle's armies in blind fury. The chaos of war was momentarily multiplied as God battled God, demon against demon. Seizing the opportunity, the defenders escaped the slaughter. Then, as though summoned by celestial will, the Seraphon descended. These star-born warriors, led by Slan Starmaster Zenfantica, illuminated the sky with constellations made real. They banished Skarbrand through sorcery and strength, and guided the Stormcasts to Blackstone Summit, a sacred site from the Age of Myth. Here, the last stand was made. Torglug led his forces in a final assault. The defenders, though exhausted and few, stood fast. At the moment of greatest despair, the Celestant Prime appeared, wielding Gelmarez, Sigmar's divine hammer. He obliterated Torglug and cast his soul into Sigmar's waiting light. The soul pod, at last, was planted. Alarielle's rebirth was a miracle. From the soil burst vines, blossoms, and pure life magic. She rose transformed, not as a sorrowful queen, but as the Ever-Queen in her aspect of war. Her beetle mount crushed foes beneath its carapace. Her spear summoned deluges. Her voice called forests from barren ground. Nurgle's forces withered under her wrath. She cleansed the Genesis Gate, sealing it in crystal amber, and cutting off reinforcements from the realm of chaos. Ghyran exhaled for the first time in centuries. Gardas was reborn in Azir, reforged in lightning. Torglug, touched by a flicker of redemption, was transformed into Tornus the Redeemed, a storm cast eternal. And even as life returned to Gairan, death stirred uneasily in Shyish. Shyish, the realm of death, is a land shaped by memory, legacy, and the slow erosion of all things into stillness. It is a place where the souls of the departed walk ancient paths, where necropolises rise like mountains and black pyramids blot out the sun. In this grim and mournful realm, Nagash, the supreme lord of the undead, reigns supreme. Once an uneasy ally of Sigmar during the Age of Myth, Nagash had grown bitter and furious over Sigmar's use of mortal souls. When the Realmgate Wars reached Shyish, Sigmar sought to rekindle that broken alliance. His aim was twofold: secure the Gothizar Gate, the All Gate of Shyish, and persuade Nagash to join the war against Chaos. But this would prove far more treacherous than liberating Gairan, for death held its own grudges, and Nagash was a god who remembered every slight. The first emissaries Sigmar sent were the Hallowed Knights under Lord Celestant Tarsus Bullheart. Tarsus, like Gardas, was a paragon of faith, a warrior of humility and resolve. With a small band of trusted stormcasts, he journeyed deep into the ossified plains of Shyish, passing catacombs that stretched for leagues and rivers choked with ghostly lamentations. Their mission, to reach Nagashizar, the heart of Nagash's empire. But the realm was not silent. Shyish, already beset by chaos, was a battlefield of eerie stillness, punctuated by violence. Slaanesh raiders hunted phantoms, while Khorne's reapers waged war against spectral guardians. Undead legions, bound to Nagash's will, fought back with grim resolve. The Stormcasts witnessed horrors. Entire towns consumed by soul-eating mists, pilgrims turned into living reliquaries, and once noble deathlords now chained by dark pacts. Eventually, Tarsus and his warriors reached the obsidian gates of Nagashizar. Here, they found not welcome, but imprisonment. Nagash, a towering figure of shadow and bone, clad in robes of sorrow and crowned with malice, accused Sigmar of theft. "These souls," he declared, gesturing at the Stormcasts, "are mine. Torn from the rightful cycle, you are abominations of stolen divinity." Tarsus pleaded for cooperation, but Nagash was unmoved. He unleashed his wrath, summoning spirits, morturks, and dread sorceries. The Stormcasts fought valiantly, but they were overwhelmed. One by one, as they fell, their souls were intercepted by Nagash before they could ascend to Azir. What he did with them remained a mystery, but Tarsus escaped. Barely. Scarred and hollow-eyed, he returned to Sigmar with heavy news. No alliance would be forged in Shyish, and the cost of trespass had been dearly paid. Meanwhile, another storm host approached the city of Nulamia, ruled by Neferata, Mortarch of blood and first of vampires. Her Gothic kingdom, all spires and shadows, was under siege by a massive Slaanesh host. With elegance and menace, Neferata commanded her undead to resist, but the demons pressed close. Lord Celestant Makvar and the anvils of the Heldenhammer arrived as unlikely allies, striking at the enemy's rear and offering Neferata a chance to regroup. The alliance was strained but functional. Magvar brought Sigmar's offer to Neferata: lend her strength, or at least neutrality, and in return, Sigmar would recognize her rule in Shyish. Intrigued, Neferata agreed to relay the message to Nagash. During their parley, she became a vessel. Nagash spoke through her, his voice booming through her throat, proclaiming that the dead owed no loyalty to the living. Yet, he did not strike the Stormcasts down. This was taken as a sign. Perhaps Nagash saw chaos as a greater threat, for now. With no assurance of help, the Stormcasts prepared to assault the Gothizar Gate on their own. The gate was heavily fortified, surrounded by cursed terrain, and guarded by chaos warbands and twisted undead raised by corrupt gaunt summoners. The Stormcasts fought with desperate fury, lightning clashed with dark sorcery, and hammers met rusted blades. Yet, the defenders were too many, and without Nagash's aid, the Stormcast line faltered. The battle ended in slaughter. The Stormcasts who fell did not return to Azir. Their souls were siphoned away by unseen forces, likely imprisoned in Nagash's labyrinthine vaults. The gate remained under chaos control, a wound in the fabric of death, bleeding corruption. Though the mission had failed, some victories endured. Neferata, amused and curious, maintained a cold truce with Sigmar. Her forces would no longer hinder the Stormcasts in Shyish, and she even lent subtle aid in skirmishes against chaos cults. The cost, however, was immense. And Nagash? He returned to his endless calculations. In the depths of Shyish, he brooded upon vengeance, sharpening his hatred of Sigmar. He spoke of a coming reckoning, a great upheaval that would reshape the mortal realms, the Necroquake. But that, as the seers would say, is a tale for another time. If this tale stirred your spirit, mark it with your like, as one might etch a rune upon stone, signifying that the knowledge has found a worthy bearer. Let it not end with you. Share the tale, as the wandering Scalds once did, passing it from campfire to fortress, so others too may witness the storm rising on the horizon. And when the next chapter begins, when gods clash and realms tremble, be there to see it unfold. Subscribe to the archives and ensure you never miss the next turning of the cosmic wheel. With the realm of life reclaimed and the realm of death left in uneasy balance, Sigmar's forces turned to new fronts. Gur, the realm of beasts where primal savagery reigned, and Shaman, the realm of metal, where logic twisted into madness. The Realmgate wars were not over. They had only just begun.